I came across a report that Louise Leonard McLaren wrote in 37. She was traveling through the South talking to people and trying to recruit students for the Southern Summer School for Women Workers. And she went to, she met you at a State Federation of Labor meeting in Anniston. And you were one of the people that she really wanted to recruit for the school, and she talked to you about workers' education and said that you were going to try to raise, help raise scholarship money and recruit students to go. Do you remember anything? Do you remember that?
It's back in the 30s.
Yeah. In 37. Did you, but you never went to the summer school yourself?
No.
Did they try to get you to come?
Yeah, it seems like some girls from Anniston went. You see, that part of that time we were spending also with textile too. We were spending time with actually helping to organize in both textile and clothing during that time. And it seems like Louise Browning from the Utica Mill there in Anniston went. And I just can't remember anyone else at the time.
But were you not interested in going
I was
yourself,
interested,
or?
but I was involved in organizing. I couldn't take the time off to go.
Were you sympathetic toward the idea of residential workers' education at that time?
Yes, I am. I've always been interested because I don't think these 1 or 2 days seminars on workers' education really has the effect it ought to have, and really prepares the workers good enough to be real leaders. I think they need more time to study it.
What do you think workers' education should accomplish?
Well, I think it should accomplish so many times at the seminars that I've been to, more or less doesn't give enough labor background history to make a person feel that when talking to workers or the potential leaders of the rank and file workers in the shop, which I hate to use that word rank and file because I don't feel like I'm nothing but a rank and filer. But some people, they want to make the distinction between the paid representatives on the staff and what we call rank and filers, and but for the people who are work in the shop and are the local union leaders, I think in recruiting people who you want to be the leaders in an organizing campaign, you should be prepared, or the people who are talking to people should be prepared. It helps them in talking to workers to help them to understand the philosophy behind the labor movement. And it helps them, I think it helps to give them more confidence in themselves when they're discussing the need for organization, to know something about the early struggles. And to know something about people who've tried and failed and kept trying again and kept failing maybe again and trying again over and over, so that people won't become impatient if it don't happen as fast as they want it to happen. And I think if they understand that and are able to convey that to the potential leaders who are helping to organize and to build the union in the shop, it makes them more effective. It makes them be able to talk more and to put down some of the person comes and say, well, my father was in the coal mines or in the steel mills or in the textile mills, and they tried to get a union, they got fired, and the struggle they went through. Then they think, well, what's the use putting up a fight for it, because you may fail, and then they're so afraid to try that they might fail. And so many people who did try and fail and may for a while become discouraged, if they really had the unionism in them and believed in it, they'd keep fighting for it. It's only the people who are, I think, only the people who let temporary setbacks put them down and hold them back. that are, I won't say harmful, but they're the people who won't make leaders. I think you have to have the determination
Well, do you
to
try
still believe, although you fail.
in your work? Do you have have you had the time, or have you tried in your own work to provide that kind of
Yes,
workers'
I think
education
that
yourself?
I think that everyday workers' education, every day that if you have time to talk with workers, not to only talk about current problems, but to let them know where this movement came from, and that so that'll help them overcome the temporary setbacks they have by putting the courage in them to keep on, not to become impatient and give up.
Did you come across any of the WPA workers' education
Yes,
projects in the 30s?
in Greenville, South Carolina, I did.
Oh, really?
They had an organization in there of the WPA workers.
Uh-huh.
In Greenville in early, let's see, we used the same hall when I was working up there. I was up there for a little while on the, what was Wings Shirt Company. And they had a good group of organized WPA workers, organized up there. Oh my goodness, let me think of that fellow's name. Remember? He later on, John Bolt Culbertson.
Yes.
John Bolt was kind of the leader of them, and he was a young lawyer there at the time in Greenville. And he was working with them.
Yeah. Did you know Alice Spearman Wright in South Carolina?
No.
She was
No, I didn't know her. I didn't work much in South Carolina. I think that was my only work in South Carolina until the late 60s.
Well, I wanted to just talk about some of the campaigns that you were involved in after World War II. Could you tell me something about the Cluett Peabody?
Well, Cluett, that was before World War II.
Yeah,
we organized.
that was in 39.
Well, really, we got the first contract in Cluett and Peabody in 41. In February of 1941, we got the first contract here. Well, the cutters had been organized in Troy for a good long while. We got the first contract in the plants in 41. I believe it was February of 41. And I didn't spend much time. Then I went back to Knoxville and worked on the Hall Tate campaign and on the Palm Beach shop also. And until 43 when I became business agent in La Follette. And then I was business agent in La Follette until 46.
I see.
Until, the latter part of 46.
So you weren't constantly involved or real closely involved with this Cluett Peabody?
Well, not after they got the contract signed. I helped in the organization here in Atlanta with May Bagwell through part of 39 and part of 40. And then it kind of seemed to simmer for a while there. We couldn't get enough interest, and May held it down pretty much alone until the breakthrough came in 41.
How do you account for how much more successful the Amalgamated was in organizing the South than, say, TWA was?
I think that we had for the main part, the companies that we organized during that time were, Manhattan and Cluett and Peabody had no history of union. But I think it came through the hard work and the statesmanship and of Sidney Hillman. More of it, I think a lot of it is due to his personality and the way he were able to, well, let's sell the union to the employers, or at least to resist, get them to resist. I mean, they didn't resist. He was able to persuade them, or in other words, that he thought the union could be advantageous to them in certain ways as far as cooperation, if they really wanted cooperation between the workers and the management, which they claimed they did. I think he finally convinced them, including Peabody and Manhattan, that this was the best way to get it. Because that's my feeling.
It was also Amalgamated had a stronger base in the
Yes,
north.
we had the base in the clothing, and we had the finances and the resources. I think certainly more than the textile unions had.
So as the plants started moving south after World War II, Amalgamated could organize them as they moved south before they got too entrenched.
Yes.
That might have been
Well, you take the Public Shirt Corporation, we organized them in the 30s. They had one shop in Knoxville. And they were in Pennsylvania, mainly in the coal fields, and I think that people were more union-orientated in those areas up there. And we were able to organize the Public Shirt, which was the S. Leibowitz and Sons then. It later became, in the 40s, it changed to Public Shirt Corporation. And again, I think that after this, well, Mr. Leibowitz himself, Mr. Harry Leibowitz, who was one of the owners, told me in the 40s that he wouldn't operate without a union, but that when the union tried to organize him in Pennsylvania, he resisted because he just thought they were going to come in and try to take over his business. But once he dealt with them and saw that it was really helpful to him in having knowledge of what was actually going on in his plants, which he would never have had the knowledge. He felt that, he told me himself that he felt that if he came to one of his shops and the workers wanted to complain to him personally about something, maybe some supervisor or some plant manager, that they weren't afraid to tell him and of their complaints and grievances, because he knew if he left there, the union was there, that the supervisor, if they would want to take retaliation against the worker, that he felt that the union would protect him. He felt that he knew more about what was actually going on in his plants. And through this corporation, he didn't resist unions. He said he would not. He told me very frankly that he wouldn't operate a shop without a union.
Well, did the Amalgamated make a strong commitment to trying to organize the South in this period, right after World War II? Is that one of the...
Yeah, well, they joined with the CIO in what's called Operation Dixie. We played over
that
there.
was
I think we gained more. We pretty much acted on our own. While we want to cooperate with other unions, we have felt that our industry was such that we had to do it ourselves because of the type of industry we had, and we felt that we could do it ourselves better than, although we cooperated with other unions, we wanted to pretty much run our own organizing campaigns. And we did have, from time to time, help from some CIO organizers in the fields in some of our campaigns, but we always ran our own campaign. We felt that our industry was a little bit peculiar in the type of work they did and the type of problems they had, and being a piecework industry. We were able to talk to the workers more about the problems, and someone say that it came out of other plants like steel, any other union. Wouldn't they be able to talk with workers? Only the workers who came out of the plants themselves was able, and had become representative was able to really discuss the day-to-day problems that occur in the garment or clothing plants.
Tell me a little something about Operation Dixie.
Well, it didn't last very long, and it didn't pay off as well as there's a lot of publicity.
Yeah. What do you think went wrong?
I really don't know, because most of the time during that time I was involved in administration work. And I only came back on the organizing staff, really not on the organizing staff, but entered into some organizing situations in the latter part of it. I was still primarily a business agent, and only helped out part-time in some of the organizing. And I wasn't as involved in that organizing as the other staff that was primarily organizing, because I was still doing servicing in La Follette, and I went into the only campaign that I worked in which Operation Dixie was not involved in it, but it was considered to be part of it, was the Henry I. Siegel situation in Bruceton, Tennessee, where we, and I was still then working as a business agent, and went in there to help out in the, trying to organize the Bruceton plant of the Henry I. Siegel Company, which we had one plant organized in Dixon, Tennessee. And that was the only organizing campaign I was involved in during that whole Operation Dixie.
Now that 47 campaign was the time which you and Mary Morgan were threatened by a mob in Knoxville?
In Bruceton.
In Bruceton. Oh, she was from Knoxville.
She was
Mary
from
Morgan
Knoxville, yeah.
What was that about? How did that happen?
Well, of course, that area was primarily a rural area. Bruceton, Tennessee was a railroad junction. It was really a railroad town. But most of the workers in that plant came from neighboring counties where there's rural, practically no industry whatsoever. And anyone who would have known that area at the time would have understood the people's fear of losing the first paycheck they ever had from Public Works. And we used to call going out and working. That's what farmers, rural people used to call working in Public Works. It wasn't anything like we think of Public Works today as being government sponsored, but our works of the WPA, but that's the way people used to call Public Works. It was prompted by those people from that, I can't think of the name of the county Camden's in. It was just Carroll County. Brewster was in Carroll County. It was right on the edge of the other county. I want to say Humphreys County, but I don't think it was. But anyhow, it was rural, completely and absolutely, no industry whatsoever. And those people came out of other rural areas, and the company, they really thought the company would close. Then too, a lot of those people had invested money to build that plant. We were able, in an earlier charge against the company, to stop deductions from their paycheck to pay for the building, and to get money back where they, after they made deductions on the building, they had, after the deductions made, it caused the people to fall below the minimum wage, and we were able to obtain back pay. The difference in what they actually received and the minimum wage after the deduction that they had signed up to have deducted out of their check to help pay for the building.
So how did this
So they were really,
incident develop?
they were the townspeople, primarily a banker there in the town, in Brewster. I think he was, of course he had a great animosity for us, because he was pretty much left holding the bag of that building that they built, and workers supposed to pay for it.
Well, did a group of people confront you while you were on the picket line, or?
No, what actually happened in Bruceton was we had the strike in Dixon. We had a union in Dixon for quite some time. I believe it was about 42 or 43 that I was sitting talking to two people from the Hall Tate shop one night. They were at my room at the hotel there in Knoxville, and his brother was a machinist or mechanic, sewing machine mechanic in Dixon, Tennessee, and he was trying to get in touch with his brother because they'd walked out. We had been in there before and were unable, because those people also had paid for the building, and they'd resisted the union over the years. All during the 30s we had tried to organize in Dixon and failed. Griselda Coolman and several organizers had been in there, and they'd been framed on charges and things, but we weren't able to get anywhere. So I got in touch with the office because I was tied up with the situation there, and let them know what had happened. And as a result, we obtained a contract in Dixon. So we had to have a strike over there for some demands that we felt that was necessary. And during this time, we were trying to organize the Bruceton plan, and we brought it out in sympathy with the Dixon, or tried to bring it out. It didn't the majority come out. And of course, we had quite a bit of skirmishes on the picket line, not from the townspeople at that time, but mainly the bosses who were trying to come through the picket line. The first day, then they got an injunction against us, and there was no more skirmishes on the picket line. But we were hurting the company to the extent that they wanted to get the picket line away so that they could ship better, because they was having a little trouble getting goods in and manufactured products out. Most of the truckers were observing our picket line. The townspeople and the farm people, not the workers, were the people who confronted Mary and I. They thought they could run us out of town. I guess they figured that would end it. Then, of course, after that happened, the railroad men got so embarrassed because this happened in the town where they felt that they were practically the whole town of Bruceton were connected with the railroad. The people who lived in the town of Bruceton were railroad workers and were strongly organized. Then they came to our rescue and tried to help all they could to give us protection, particularly in the town of Brewster, which I say most of the workers didn't come from that area. They traveled from the next county up to work. Majority of the people lived outside the county.
I saw that at the 48 convention, in the proceedings, there's a little exchange where it had been rumored that you and Mary Morgan had been run out of town, and you correct that misimpression. And
well, what happened that morning, that was before we were out of bed. In fact, it was real early. I guess it was around 7 o'clock. We were living in the home of a Methodist minister. And he came in there and told me some men was outside and wanted to talk with me. So we got up and went to the door, and it was the spokesman for him was Hillsman Taylor, who was a constable or town marshal or constable or something. And Hillsman said people want to talk with us, and there's I guess there's 150 men out there all trampling the minister's yard. So I said, well, couldn't one or two of you come up here to tell us that, and not have everybody out there trampling Mrs. Can't think of the lady's name. Her yard and her flowers, and that kind of set them back, because I said, they are residents here. And then Hillsman and one of the newspaper men came inside, and we sat down at the dining table, and I asked him, "How did you get here so quick from Memphis?" And he said, "Oh, I got a call this morning at 2 o'clock." So they wanted the publicity, evidently, because the newspaper man told me. Then he wanted to make a picture
Who
of
wanted
us,
the publicity?
the mob,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all you could term it, a mob.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "How'd you get out here so quick from Memphis?" And he said, "I got a call this morning at 2 o'clock. So evidently they was telling him he had him out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he kept insisting that he make a picture of Mary and I with our suitcases. And I said, "Well, I'm not going anywhere." And he kept insisting. And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it." And we went to eat breakfast at a little restaurant uptown, and when we came out, he made a picture of us coming out of the restaurant. Then later, when the paper came out, he was already written that we had been run out of town. So that's why he wanted the picture with a suitcase to back up his story. He'd already written the story, evidently, because when the commercial appeal came out on the street, we got it that afternoon. The story was written that they'd run us out of town. So that's why I wanted everybody to know that.
Well, did Hillsman say to you, "Get out of town"?
No.
Did
He
they
said
actually
these men. No, he was come up and said his men want to talk to me. They wanted us to leave town. No, because he'd been pretended to be quite friendly with us before. Hillsman Taylor had. And after that, well, he was. I guess he was pretending, escorting the newspaper man, pretending to see that everything would be peaceful.
I see.
So, actually, I can't remember the man's name that did the biggest talking. I could look back through the records to find out. Later, the company hired him as their guard up at the plant. He was from the next county, too, and he wasn't very well respected by the people in Bruceton. I cannot remember the fellow's name. His nickname was Rabbit. I guess that sticks in my mind more than his real name. But he told me he wanted us to get out of town, and I didn't answer him. That's when I said to him, "Well, look, couldn't one or two of you come up here and told us that besides, instead of bringing out like mob on the lady's yard and trampling her flowers."
Did you have any more trouble with threats after that incident? Did they just disperse and?
After the railroad men they called a meeting on a Sunday, and all the railroad men came, and they said they did not intend to have that in the town of Brewster. They called upon, they talked to Hillsman Taylor and the mayor of the town, and let it be known that they weren't going to tolerate anything like that in the town. That we had acted, we hadn't been behaving ourselves and not breaking any laws, and that we had a right to be there. They went. And I think that I think that had the effect of keeping them from doing anything actually to us openly.
Now, Gladys Nicholson was chairman of the CIO Southern Organizing Committee at that time. Was she involved in Operation Dixie, or was she?
Yeah,
she was
well, she was on. No, she was. At that time, technically, Gladys was head of the research department. But then she'd taken over as Southern director for the Amalgamated.
I see.
And of course, she may have been on, as usual, they'll have some people from every union that's involved in a drive like the IUD has now. They have people from all the unions participating and helping advise and sitting in on meetings and plannings and things like that. But Gladys was our research director and also Southern director of the union.
So you were working under her?
Directly under her.
Now the whole Tate campaign in Knoxville, that was you never got a contract. That was an unsuccessful.
We didn't get a contract until another company bought them out. A company that we had a contract with. They closed down. And dissolved business as Hall Tate. Then Henley Tate, a nephew of Mr. Sam Tate, who was one of the owners, William Hall and Sam Tate owned the business. And we're making suits for Stein stores.
Mm-hmm.
And over the labor controversy, Stein's and they withdrew their work from the Hall Tate Company after the strike we had in Hall Tate in 41.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam Tate and a man called Breezy Wynn, I think his name's Herman, we always called him Breezy.
Mm-hmm.
Herman Wynn, he went into making pants. And then later the firm was bought out by a company we had a contract with in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been a union shop ever since.
I see. Well, why don't
But
we...
the Hall and Tate doesn't have anything to do with the company anymore. Henley
see.
stayed on for a while with the company as a manager of the plant. And he may have some stock in the company as far. I don't know if he's still associated with it or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You went to La Follette then in 40...
I was in Roanoke, Alabama, working on the Palm Beach shop.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, John L. Lewis had pulled the United Mine Workers out of the CIO. And he had set up two groups, one called United Construction Workers.
Mm-hmm.
The other was District 50. As I understand it, District 50 was to organize in byproducts of coal and things more directly associated with coal. And the United Construction Workers was kind of a catch-all organization that took in everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So they was trying to get the people in the two shirt factories that we had organized in La Follette to join their union. And of course, using the mine workers' name, United Mine Workers' name, to try to attract them to it. And they couldn't make any success. They couldn't get to anywhere with the people. They wouldn't join. So Franz Daniel and Ed Blair was in there at the time. And they were attacked and beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And Franz was shot. He wasn't actually shot, but the bullet lodged in a thick wallet he had in his pocket, in his coat breast pocket. And Gladys called me to come up there, and that's how I got involved in the Follette, because they felt that a woman would be safer in there than a man.
Mm-hmm.
A woman maybe could not be openly attacked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And however, I didn't depend on that. I was very careful not to be out after dark and not to go any place except the Union Hall and to the restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and to the hotel where I stayed. But the men would sit out in front of the hall, carloads of men, and watch us all day long. Evidently thought they'd scare us,
Mm-hmm.
which we went ahead about our business. Just like they weren't out there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we knew they were there, and we were prepared. So they didn't actually. So I went to La Follette then, at the request. That's how I came to La Follette in the early part of 1943.
Now, this was the Atlas and Reed shirt.
Well, they weren't called Atlas. Originally, they were called Atlas and Reed.
Mm-hmm.
The Atlas plant became Southeastern Shirt Corporation, and it was Southeastern Shirt Corporation at the time. And the Reed plant became Imperial Shirt Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They were bought out by different companies.
Mm-hmm. But they had been organized.
Yes,
they
it was organized in the
37.
30s.
Uh-huh. Did you know anything about that that original organizing drive?
No.
Zilphia Horton, I know, is...
Zilphia and Elaine Wright and Charlie Handy.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly Charlie Handy and Elaine Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Zilphia was in there for a short while after it organized, for a short while.
I know they tried to put her in as business agent, and the workers didn't
No,
want
they
to
felt they
woman.
ought to have a man. I was the first woman business agent they ever accepted in La Follette.
Was there any question raised when you came in
No.
about your being a woman?
No.
Why did they accept you so readily?
Well, I knew the history of La Follette, working in and around Knoxville and Middlesboro, Kentucky. I'd met these people at meetings and all, and I don't think they looked on me as a woman.
They were just...
I think my first meeting with them, and I knew the history, and I talked to them. And I explained to them that we were in there to work together. If they didn't trust me, now was the time to say it, and we was going to, if they hadn't. So at the very outset, we got off on the right foot, and we had a wonderful relationship with those people.
Well, now, a lot of the miners were the husbands of the women who were organized in the shirt plant.
I want to say now that the United Mine Workers, the men in the mines, and the representatives of the United Mine Workers were never in no way involved directly. They stayed clear of it. In fact, I knew some of the representatives, having worked with them all during the years. And they apologized to me for what was going on because they knew me. And I worked very closely with them on the OPA and the War Manpower Commission. I sat on that, representing the CIO in that district. And representatives of the United Mine Workers. And none of them, I can say that I never saw a representative of the United Mine Workers. And as far as I know, no rank and file miner was ever involved.
Well, who were the people who were involved?
There was an ex-sheriff, Clifford Leigh, was put on the staff, and Silas Huddleston. Silas
Huddleston.
That don't ring a bell,
yes,
lady?
That he was involved in the Tony Boyle murder. It's the same person?
Same person, Silas Huddleston.
Wow.
Silas Huddleston was a miner from Caryville, Tennessee, and was president of one of the locals down there, and he went on the staff of the United Construction Workers. They put him on the staff. And he was the leader of that, and I'm pretty sure he's the leader of having Ed and Franz beat up. He was the leader and the one that I always done my talking to when it was necessary to talk to him.
What was he like?
He, to me, was, I think, and that's what makes it so sad about what happened later. When I read in the paper and they mentioned La Follette, his name popped in my head. And one of the friends of mine up in there sent me newspapers and everything. Sure enough, he was involved. When it became so, I just said to myself, I bet Silas Huddleston's involved in that in some way, shape. And there was another man who was never, Pat McCulley worked for United Construction Workers, but he was I never saw Pat in any of the mobs that tried to rush our union hall or give us any trouble. I never saw Pat in it. I had known Pat. I had never known Silas Huddleston before, but I had known Pat McCulley. He was a miner, and they put him on the staff. And I never saw Pat. I don't believe that Pat was ever involved in it because I never saw him. And I did talk to him once after I went to La Follette.
Now, who was the sheriff or deputy?
Clifford Leigh.
What was his role?
Was sheriff, and he was put on the staff.
While he was sheriff?
No, he got defeated as sheriff.
I see.
and they put him on the staff of the United Construction Workers.
Mm-hmm.
Then he later ran for sheriff and was defeated.
Because of his role
Later on.
in...
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say. I think it had a big part to play, among other things that I can't prove. It's best not to say.
Mm-hmm.
Involved in some running of whiskey out of Kentucky, and supposed to have been his automobile that hit the guy and killed him and didn't stop. Anyway, he was defeated. He got back in sheriff. I believe he was elected one time, and then a man named Rose Kitts defeated it.
Were his activities
And that was the end, as
ever...
far as I know, of his career as a law enforcement officer.
Was his involvement in this jurisdictional dispute ever raised as a campaign issue against him?
Not openly.
Not openly.
You didn't do things like that in the mining area. In the mining area, you didn't. You had to have some more subtle ways to actually fight.
Mm.
I had calls from rank and file miners saying they'd come help me, but my position was that I didn't want to cause a conflict between two unions. And I never accepted their help.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to cause any more trouble. I thought we could fight our own battle. I didn't want to get any of the rank and file miners involved to the extent that they might get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I had a group of miners come and I went and met with them, sat down and talked with them, and I told them at that time they would just cause them trouble in their own union.
Mm-hmm.
And since their union was involved, that I thought it was better that they stay clear of it. And that's why I say the United Mine Workers didn't directly try to cause any violence. I have to blame the United Mine Workers because they're paying the bill.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that people who knew miners, the day that the mob came down there and tried to break in our union hall, and finally did break in, and we had a fight.
What happened when the mob broke
People
into the
told
union
me
hall?
that there was no miners involved. There were taxi drivers and just anybody they could pick up.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some taxi drivers. They had organized the taxi drivers into the United Construction Workers in that area. They owned their own cabs. In fact, I was afraid to even ride a cab during that time. I didn't know who anybody was, and I walked.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have an automobile. My car had torn up, and I was, during the war, you was unable to get cars, and I didn't have an automobile. So I'd walked
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the town I wanted to go, unless one of the workers had a car.
Tell me about this incident when they broke into the union hall. What happened?
Well, they kept trying to get the people to join the union, and they didn't have any success. A few people would join, and they just couldn't get. Well, they had 4 or 5 of the women who worked in the old reed shop, which is called the Imperial Shirt, that was involved. I know one of them had been a forelady, and she was going to lose her job as a forelady, and I think she was afraid the union wasn't going to accept her back into union membership because of her activities previously.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we had a closed shop, our union shop, and you had to be a member of the union. And the firm had talked with me about accepting her back in the union. And I told the firm that I didn't have anything to do with it, that when time came for her to go back off of supervision onto her bargaining unit job, that I would do what I could, but I did not know how the people felt about her, and what had happened in the past, I didn't have no knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that I couldn't give them any assurance that she would be accepted in the union because I didn't have a vote. I only had a voice. And I had been talking to the people more or less about it, the officers of the union, and discussing it with them, that she was going to come back. But they used her and a few others that were disgruntled for some reason. But they couldn't get the majority because we did service the people. We had a good contract, as good as anybody had in those days in the shirt plant. The people were very happy with the amalgamated clothing workers. And we had, of course, people who, as every union is not perfect, but we had very good meetings, good support from our members. We had a good union. And they just couldn't get anywhere.
Were most of these workers women in
Yes,
Mr. Shetland?
yes. I didn't involve any of the men. I told the men to stay out of it altogether. The few men we had in the plant, because they would be victims of violence and beatings, and I told them to stay clear. And
how did the women respond to the threats of violence?
they just held their heads up and went on until they started shooting in their houses and beating up their husbands, threatening. Pressure got a little bad after they finally put a picket line out and wouldn't let the people into work. They put a picket line out and wouldn't let the people into work, and that's how they finally got one of the shots. They never did get the other. But they came, we was having a meeting over at the hall, and they came up, and we had the door locked. And I, 75 or 100 guys, one or two women, and people who knew them said they worked in Jellicoe. They were not workers from our plant. None of the workers from our plant was involved in it. And they were trying to get the door open, and they couldn't get it open. They kept trying, and so we had clubs inside the hall to protect ourselves. And every time they'd stick their fingers through the crack, one of the girls would hit their fingers. And they yelled, and the cop was standing outside, one of the city policemen watching all of this. And they yelled back to him and said they got clubs in there. And he came up and asked me to open the door, and we opened the door, and he stepped back and let them in. And then them women beat the tar. The first day they put the picket line at the Imperial shirt plant. That plant had their clock set to get off 5 minutes earlier than the other plant. And no, I'm getting that backward. The plant, the southeastern plant, because it was furthest from the restaurants and the bus station, they had their clock set to give them equal chance to get in the restaurants and on the bus in the afternoon to get a seat. And for some reason or other, that's the way the people wanted it. So when I came out at noon out of the southeastern shop, there was a man standing out there, and he said, "We want y'all to come over to the other plant. At noon, we're going to organize it." And I said, "Well, I thought it was organized." That's all I said, and that tipped me off. And as I was going on to the hall, I met one of the city councilmen. And he was going home for lunch. He walked that way every day and went home for lunch. And I told him I was expecting trouble. So he turned and went back. And I went on over to the big plant, what we call the big plant, the Imperial plant. And there was a great gang there. And most of the women stayed in the plant and didn't come out. And I got in the plant. And they didn't know who I was. There was people out there, they didn't know me. And I think a lot of those men were brought down there that day under the impression that plant did not have a union in it. Did not know what they were there for. And I went inside the plant and alerted the union officers and stewards. And most of them stayed in. The few who came out, when they tried to come back in after work, why, we had to fight to get them in. We fought all through the hall of the plant and finally got some of them in. But the majority did not come out. They stayed inside the plant all during the lunch hour. So the company then shut the plant down because of the trouble. And we had a wage opener at that time. We were opening to discuss a wage increase at that plant. And that opened for an election. So the time the election came around, there'd been so much violence and shooting and threats and everything that we lost it, slightly lost it. The day before the election, I had practically every union member in the hall to a meeting. But the fear of not being able to get into work, I think, caused them. They said, well, so they said, I sue. And then the day after, they lost. The plant couldn't operate because people didn't go into work. They came to the union
You
hall.
think the same people that may have voted
Against
amalgamated
Yeah.
still stayed out of
That's
work?
right. They came to the hall instead. They were so upset over losing it. I think they all thought that enough would vote to put it over. And almost did. We almost did. But there was just enough of them that was frightened, and I'm sure that's what it was. And the plant manager called me and asked me to tell people to come to work, and I said, well, you're kindly calling the wrong people, ain't you? I said, we don't represent those people anymore. And I said, I don't care what happens. Oh, he said, I know you better than that. You do care. And I said, well, some of them never went back to work. Never worked another day in that plant. He was saying they didn't never work no more in the plant, and one's retired out of the Irish shirt plant today that was involved in that, never went back to work in that plant anymore.
Was any legal action taken against the mob
No.
at all?
No. I tell you, I felt then as I feel now, and I told Brother Potowski when I talked with him, he told me just to leave. When they began all this fight, he asked me, said, why don't you just leave and let them have it? More or less, that's what he said. And I said, these people don't want to leave our union. And I don't want to leave. I don't stick with them. And he said, well, hire you a good lawyer. That's all I can do. So,
What did he mean by that?
well, to protect me in case any frame-ups or anything. And I felt this way, that I did not want to bring any legal action against another union member. And that's what I told Silas Huddleston. Came down there later, he and 5 men, and I got from the door and I said, what do you want? And he said, I'm coming in that hall. And I said, not as long as Amalgamate's paying rent on this hall, you're not coming in here. And he said, I represent those people. And I said, well, if you represent them, you go rent your hall and take them to it and represent them. But you're not coming in this hall. And I said, I want to tell you something, Silas. I said, you're not going to do me like you did Franz Daniel and Ed Black. I said, I know you don't have guts enough to do it yourself, but in case you have any idea of having somebody do something to me, you're going to pay for it. I'm going to see that you pay for anything that happens to me. And he said, well, I hope nothing doesn't happen. I said, well, you better, because you're going to pay for it. I'm going to hold you responsible. So, the only I and the secretary-treasurer of the local was in there. And she was behind the door with a 45, because it beat her husband up. And he was a very frail, sick man, not able to do hard work. He worked in the bus station, restaurant. And they'd come in the restaurant thing and beat him up, trying to make her quit the amalgamated. And she had a 45 standing behind the door, but she would have killed him. I'm trying to think of other blessings Myrtle had. He might have had trouble with that. Well, anyway, they
Was
won the
this the
election.
most violent campaign that you were involved in, most violent period and incident that you were involved in, that you've been involved in?
Over a longer period of time, it went over actually the pressure and the anxiety and the pressure before they had to finally take it by main force with physical violence. But the pressure the people were on, I say it went on the longest. And it was quite embarrassing coming from a so-called union. That's what I told Silas that day. I said, it's very embarrassing to have to stand up. And I said, we have a hard enough time to organize without 2 unions having to fight each other. And That's the way I felt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still say today, I'm proud of the way we acted. They would have never been able to have won an election if I had not agreed for the company. The company asked me if, and the mayor of the town, and a good friend, Mr. Charlie Russell, who was a very good friend of mine, who ran the hotel, and I was at that time living in one of his houses. They came and talked to me about getting the plant open, and I agreed. I said, well, there's nothing, the company can open it anytime they want to, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm still proud that we did not attack another union. We did not attack any other members. We just merely tried to protect ourselves. And I'm proud of it, although we lost the shop, and I'm sorry to say a lot of the people knew they was making a mistake, but they rather work that way than not to work. And most of the people still feel today, and of course it's a long time the old timers know that practically new group workers in there now.
You are during this same
They tried to take the other plant, but by that time Clifford Leigh had become, he did go back in there, and he was sheriff at the time this happened. He was county sheriff, because he did go back. The first time he ran against an old man who was in his 70s. And he did defeat that old man, barely defeated him. And he went back and during the time he was sheriff, this was happening. And after this, all this violence, he resigned as sheriff. I'm pretty sure it was under pressure from the Governor McCord, because Charlie Russell told me that he went to see the governor. He resigned, and they put the former chief of police there in as sheriff. He went outside of town and hired, no, he didn't hire him, but the city hired a man from outside as chief of police. And the climate was much better. They couldn't get by with doing the violence to us in the other plant. Although they tried every way that they could, and the local management there was playing with them. They thought if they'd get rid of us, they knew it would be a stronger union, wouldn't understand our work. And they were really playing footsie with this other union. But the people resisted it. And we had to call a strike of our own during that time for violation of the contract. And they tried to run some scabs in, but they didn't get to first base. And I told the chief of police that we weren't going to stand for it. He said, I'm not going to have any fighting. I said, well, if the scabs show up, there's going to be some fighting. And I can go to jail good as anybody. But they weren't enough. They didn't. Our people over there were stronger, and the pressure couldn't be put on with the new sheriff, the acting sheriff. And I'm trying to think of his name, because it's a very fine person. He was a railroad detective. He had been chief of police during the time, and he did his best to try to get us. He came and talked to me, and he said he thought he had some good leads as to who beat up Franz Daniel and Ned Blair, and wanted my permission to, or wanted me to prosecute. And I told him just what I told you, that I did not want to get involved and try to cause any trouble in another union. And he got a little bit disturbed. And
you said
Henry Sutton is his name. Henry Sutton.
You said you were living in a Methodist minister's house at first?
In Bruceton.
Oh, in Bruceton. I'm sorry.
Oh,
right.
I left Bruceton and went to
yeah,
LaFollette.
Yeah. I just.
But you see, LaFollette happened before Bruceton.
Yeah, yeah.
See, after we lost the big shop, I had the small shop. So I started helping out in the organizing campaign some, because I just had this one shop.
I was just wondering about whether that was unusual to get. Was he allowing you to live in his house because he was sympathetic toward the union?
Who?
The Methodist minister?
Very sympathetic.
I was
and
wondering
she
if
was
you-
too.
if you got that
she
kind-
had lived there, and he was her second husband. And I cannot remember as terrible. I can't remember the name.
Did you get any support from the churches like that in any of your?
Oh no.
Did you get active opposition in your organizing efforts from the churches?
In
and
some
things like that?
areas, and especially in the textile, we were in textile. Not so much in the garment plants. I never open opposition. Of course, most of the people, as they say, my pastor told me not to have anything to do with the union. There's some churches back then that called the CO the mark of the beast, and they were just. But I think the main thing, most of the churches that the workers went to. My feeling that they had to support their church because if nobody had money went there, and all the money the church got was what these workers got, and they were afraid of losing it. I'm pretty sure that was the motive in them telling them not to have anything to do with the union. Sure, it was that more than anything else.
You were serving on the OPA price panel
During
during this
World-
time that you were involved. And Hillsman was national co-director, I think, of the
Of the War
OPA,
Manpower
Of the
Commission.
War Manpower Commission. What was your role on the, or what was the OPA price panel's purpose, and what kind of role was labor
Well,
trying to play in that?
We more or less, the people who worked in the OPA, we were a voluntary board, and they would bring, when they couldn't straighten out violations of the code, they would bring them to us, and then we would take action. And that was what we do. We'd have a meeting and take up what the investigators and checkers who checked the stores, and then they'd come before us. It was labor, and public, whoever that is, and housewives, business panel, and that was the purpose of the OPA, to try to keep everybody in line.
Well, and to try to keep down inflation, was that the overall purpose? Or
Yeah, that, yes, and to try to keep people from selling tallow for margarine. You'd be surprised, but that happened.
Selling
And
what for margarine? Tallow?
beef tallow,
Oh,
or some kind of looking stuff. I looked at it, I don't know what it was. But they were selling it for margarine. A lot of things like that that you had to watch to see that. You're very careful about meats and things being sold. It was a proper inspection. And prices particularly. They checked the prices. They had to post their prices, you know. A lot of stores would not post their prices. Had a terrible time with some of the stores getting them to post their prices. You couldn't tell if it was a violation unless they posted.
I noticed that the 46 Amalgamated Convention was in Atlanta. Wasn't?
Never has been no.
Never has
Never
been.
been no amalgamated convention in Atlanta.
I thought that was unusual. I wondered if they ever met in.
There wasn't one in 46. 44. The next one was in 48. We didn't have one in 46 during the war.
48.
Wait a minute
Yes, I
now.
was
Wait a
thinking-
minute. We had one in 44. I believe we had one. We skipped. No, we skipped from 40 to 44. We did have one in 46. We skipped from 40 to 44 because of the war. And 46, Atlantic City, I guess. Yeah.
Atlantic City.
It's
That's
Atlantic
what it
City,
was.
huh?
Yeah. I looked at some of the proceedings for that
That was right
convention.
after the. That was right after the Laholic thing.
Yeah, and you were speaking in favor of a commitment to the Southern Drive. Griselda Kuhlman was also speaking about her experience in the South. I was wondering whether you felt that the Union did not make, whether you were trying to push the Union to make a more serious commitment to the South, whether there was opposition to that, whether that
No,
was
there's never been no opposition, but at conventions you always feel like at revival meetings you have to keep praising the Lord.
I see.
You always have to keep the members who were delegates there. After all, the money comes from the national office, and the delegates in the convention is the supreme voting power, and you're doing that to impress the members, delegates from those locals.
I see.
All over. We had to get our money to organize the South from the other locals. And
so the question was how much money was going to be voted.
To impress the delegates there, the need to organize the South to protect their conditions. That's the why we were making the pitch.
You mean delegates from locals outside of the South?
That's right. But predominantly that's where they were from.
Right, right.
We had we're the largest single joint board now in the amalgamated. The membership's beginning to shift. But at that time we had in '46, I think we had guess we had not over 8 locals in the South. I may be wrong. You can almost name them because we had Dixie, Knoxville, Love Followed, and Atlanta, Americus, Bremen, Buchanan, Dixie. I don't know the ones. I didn't work in Mississippi. We had some in Mississippi. We didn't have a single one in Alabama at the time. We had Montgomery. We had a shop in Montgomery. That was in the amalgamated. All blacks. Fannie Neal, who now works at National Copes out of that shop.
What effect did the Taft-Hartley Act on, I guess it was 47, 48?
Well, let me see. I got the list somewhere and all them things passed now.
Yeah, I can look that up.
Well,
what effect did that have on the amalgamated and on your work?
Well, any time that you have, now it's my experience that once you organize a shop, most of the manufacturers rather have everybody in or out because it's still divided. And you have two groups, more or less, in controversy and competition with each other. Unless you are able to get an overwhelming majority signed so that they pretty well don't look to see if the boss is giving a little favoritism to the people who don't belong. You have people who don't belong accusing the boss of being better to the union people occasionally. As far as organizing, I can honestly say that a lot of people have said to me, whether they mean it or not, but I have had more people to say to me, I'd join the union if everybody had to join, but I don't want to join the union, the rest of them get what I am getting and not have to help pay for it. Now that's honestly the truth. I've had a lot of people say to me, and it's surprising, the workers who do not know this. It's surprising of the workers who do not know that there's laws that they don't have to join in to work in a union shop. And that get really upset when they find out people can work in there and get the same thing they work without having to pay for it. As far as it's always been hard. If it's not one thing to combat, it's another. It has certainly hindered organization because more and more it weakened the law. The company gets up every day and says, "I don't have to do nothing. The union can't make me do nothing. You can organize the union if you want to, but there ain't no way. The union has to come to me, and if I don't want to give it, I don't have to give it." And the law has become pretty much A lot of the workers don't have much confidence in it because they see so many ways the company can get around it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many slick ways that they can say what they want the company, the workers to think they say without actually saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Then too, the workers are afraid to, if the boss does violate the law, they are afraid to back it up and give a statement and go and face him in it.
A whole spate of right-to-work laws were passed in the South after Taft-Hartley, weren't they? Did that happen?
Yeah. They had to do that because, see, Taft-Hartley still give us a right for the union shop, the majority voted for it, and was winning the elections overwhelmingly for the union shop. Because once workers join, they feel that everybody should help pay the freight. And they were winning. We were winning. That left it. We a union shop. The majority voted for it. I mean, a 2/3 majority had to vote for the union shop. And we were winning, and we practically lost none. Once you could win the election, it was very easy to win the union shop. Because most people felt that, well, if I'm going to have a union here, why, I should join it and help. The average worker will join the union if they see some benefit to it. The few dollars they pay in dues is not what keeps people out of the union. And they want to, and two, you can't have a voice unless you're a member. You can't attend the meetings, have nothing to do with elections of officers. And it was easy to win the second election for a union shop, and these powers that be begin to work to try to get state laws, which are very much easier to get passed.
What about the requirement that union officers had to sign anti-communist affidavits, or affidavits saying that they were not members of the Communist Party? Did that have a very negative effect on the
At first, now it's pretty much routine. People are a little more sophisticated. But I know the first one signed, the workers would look at you when there's elected officers and you hand them one to sign. They wondered, well, Lord, what in the world? I'm not a communist. Why do they want me to sign that? They felt like I do about it. You are asking me to say that I'm not. I haven't even been accused or suspected, and here I am trying to prove that I'm not. And they resented it, and I think it's become a matter of routine. Now they understand better that they're not being accused of anything. But it's still something that I think is terrible, to have to prove you're not something before you're even accused or suspected. And if a person's going to work undercover, they'd sign it anyway. So it's just a farce as far as I'm concerned.
You went back on staff as an organizer in 52.
Straight organizing.
And what was your first assignment? You went to Miami? Gladys Nicholson asked you to come back on staff as an organizer and sent you to Miami in 52. And then my first assignment was in Livingston, Tennessee. That's the first assignment. I went and worked with a group on a shirt plant in Livingston, Tennessee. And there we were confronted again with the same group, United Construction Workers. They came in and got on the ballot, and we lost the election by 30 votes. And they used every tactic, called us communists, loudspeakers, and threatened to beat us up. Same old routine. How did you deal with being red-baited, with being called a communist in these different situations?
It never worried me. I didn't let it bother me because I don't think workers paid attention to it. First place, the average worker, the communist is a word to them. It's a dreadful word. But they didn't pay attention. I think they knew that this group was just for That was propaganda that was used against us. We brought some of our, in that campaign at Livingston, we brought some of our members from La Follette who had confronted this group before. And we brought people out of the shop.
Did you prefer being...
One girl, the miners threatened to withdraw her mother's miner's pension, and she had to go back in the shop.
Did you prefer being an organizer or being a business agent? In which role did you...
It doesn't make any difference. It's, you know, I think sometimes I feel that business agent is more rewarding. You see some good you're doing, and you're organizing. Sometimes you feel like, well, you're out here, got these people out on a limb, and you have to fight. You worry yourself to death, afraid that something happens and you're not going to be able to protect them. And that they don't follow your advice a lot of times. And when they talk union, they're going to talk union, and you try to advise them how to do so that the boss won't catch them off guard, so we can protect them with whatever the law can protect them with. And you worry constantly about it, that maybe somebody is in there talking that don't know really how to protect themselves, and to get fired, you worry yourself to death. I know when I first started organizing, everybody got fired. I tried to, back then you had no relief or nothing. I used to spend most of my paycheck keeping people up who got fired. Families, they had no income. So organizing is a heartbreaking job in a lot of respects, and it's you feel sometimes that you're batting your head against a stone wall, but seeing all in all, you know that it has to be done, but you have to keep at it. If you don't, you can slip backward a heck of a sight faster than you can go forward. If you don't keep up the battle, well, you can slip backward.
Well, you and Ed Blair then were assistant organizing directors under Gladys Nicholson.
We more or less divided up the South.
You, two of the strikes that I know about during that time were at Water Valley, Mississippi, and Newberry, South Carolina. Were those the two?
See, Water Valley was first. Water Valley first. Well, see, I worked there and organized Leeds, Alabama, and a little plant out in Bessemer, Alabama. During that time, I know Water Valley was first.
Was it at Water Valley that Ed Blair was shot?
No, he was never shot on an amalgamated picket line. He was shot on a picket line with the IUE in Columbus, Mississippi.
In Columbus, Mississippi.
Where he's on the picket line was then. I forgot the name.
I believe we were talking about the Water Valley and Newberry campaigns.
Yeah, Water Valley was first, and then I went down there from. Yeah, that's right. I went down there from. I was in Birmingham when we just completed that. Organizing that Leeds Solomon Company.
Oh, right. What, that was Bessemer Leeds?
No, Bessemer was a pajama plant. We had a campaign in that strike. And the UG intervened.
The UG?
I was negotiating contract. I know the company got to come in because no people hate them. But anyway, then we had a Solomon Company pants factory out there. We'd organized and got a contract in. And I was helping out. And oh, wait a minute, that was Columbus I was helping out then. Wait a minute, what stuff? That was the same time, I think. But I was going to help on the Seminole campaign. Part of the week then. I went to Miami from Huntington. We're back at the Huntington, Tennessee.
Had a successful.
Hit up another campaign on the Seagull Company. Oh. We're glad it's sitting into Miami then. It's Miami.
About 52.
54, huh? I can't remember when it Blueberry Strike is. The pictures in there might have it on them. Got me remember them? One of those pictures. It must have been right after see, I didn't work much in Mississippi. I just went in to help out when he had needed, especially to have strike.
So he was really in charge of.
Yeah, he was in charge. He pretty well. I never worked much with him. He liked Mississippi. He handled Mississippi all together. I just went in a time or two in Mississippi to help him out. I went in right from the Seminole campaign.
What were the states that you were in charge of?
Well, he and I split just pretty well. Worked together, whichever way. I usually worked over this way. I used to kid him and ask him what to know in between. He was either in Mississippi or Miami. He liked to. And he took care of most of the Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. Well, no, there wasn't much going on in Alabama then.
Were you working out of Atlanta?
Well, we was working out of our car, mainly. Nashville was the office, was the southern office in Nashville. And I just really didn't have really, I was technically working out in Nashville also, hardly was there. Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas.
So you really have, most of the time, just lived on the road.
I haven't been to one place very long, except when it was a business agent. I was based in La Follette, and then I was based in Huntington, Tennessee. When I often was in Nashville, I very seldom ever lived in Nashville.
This Newberry contract was one of the first victories in South Carolina, wasn't it? I mean,
well, we had Charleston, South Carolina, which man had a church we got without too much trouble. Started that plant later after we left the Manhattan shop. Newberry, Illinois, the first we truly organized and won the election. And we had to strike for a contract. A lot of these companies where we had already had contracts in major shops, why we just had to have a card check. We never signed a contract though without having a card check or an election. Card check and getting certification from the board. Having an impartial person check the card against the payroll. And certify us as the bargaining agent. That was our procedure. We never just signed the contract and presented it to people. We always got them in charge of the card signing. Had a card check and then negotiated the contract. With the exception of Huntington, Tennessee, we didn't do that in Huntington. It wasn't necessary. We had a contract. Publix is one of the best companies I think we ever had. As far as I'm concerned, it's my favorite company as far as labor relations.
Publix?
Well, it's old S. Lee Britt's company. I'll tell you about that. Public Shirt Corporation's company now. They changed their name along in the late 40s to Public Shirt Corporation. It used to be S. Lee Britt's and Sons. And
did they have plants in other parts of the country and parts of the South, or was that
no, not
local?
then. They had Pennsylvania, and they had this one in Knoxville, and they made jackets, things that's booming today. They made them then. Then they went out for a while, jackets. And they never could convert that, never could get a successful conversion from jackets to shirts in Knoxville. So they built this plant in Huntington, Tennessee. And started making shirts. And we never, they had to agree with any shop they came on the contract automatically. They had to agree with anything. Every new shop they opened. And now they've got 4, I guess it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. That one in Huntington, we got one in Columbia, Tennessee, Macon, Georgia. We got one Mississippi. Just bought it on McGregor. We bought it on McGregor.
Mm-hmm. What about the next campaign that I remember us touching on before was the Majorette Sportswear
I
campaign?
wasn't involved.
Oh, you weren't there?
No, I was involved in Majorette at all. Where I was when that was going on. I didn't. After I left Tennessee, the only organizer in Tennessee I did was Ed pretty well handled Tennessee and Mississippi, what little it was in Alabama, and Miami. Pretty well the rest of the areas pretty well up there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't work on Majorette. I worked some in Deckard. That was later years though. Deckard, organizing Deckard.
What was the company there?
Let's see, what was that old thing? It's closed now. Breezy Wind owned it. Let's see. Deckard, no. I was in Deckard Franklin, still there. Yeah. What in the world was that? Something thought Can't remember.
Tell me a little bit how the structure actually worked. Did you have organizers working under you that you sent out to these? How many organizers did you have?
Well, it's just a matter of Ed usually assigned the organizers, and he usually had me to go. Tell you the truth, I mean, where he didn't want to. That's what I used to tell him.
What kind of places would that be?
Just where Ed didn't want to go. But anyway, he'd call me up, say, hey, how about you go over there? How about you handling that? So I didn't care where I worked. But I told him I was glad to tell him. I worked there where he didn't want to work. Of course, I didn't care about Mississippi. I liked the people in Mississippi, but I couldn't stand that country. Hot. Blech. I like Tennessee and North Carolina. It sounds cool. Good. Let's see, after Newberry. No, I can't. I think those other places. Well, I was back in Birmingham for some reason. I know. Well, I know Water Valley was after before Newberry, I think it was. It couldn't have been. Almost about the same time. Because 52 I was in Livingston. And then I stayed for a while in Huntington to try to direct that campaign of Seagulls. And then Gladys sent me from there to, I believe I went to Miami. I got the first contracts in Miami. And it was all mixed up there.
You can't, I think we stopped where you had just come back on staff as an organizer in 52 with Ed Blair. And you went back to Huntington.
No, I left Huntington. That's where I was business agent in West Tennessee. When I came back on organizer staff, and the first assignment was Livingston, Tennessee.
Oh, Livingston. Right.
Yeah. Which was in progress when I got there. And I headed up that campaign where we had another run-in with our friends. I don't know if it was District 50 Union Construction Workers by that time. Sometime during that time they disbanded the Union Construction Workers. And District 50, I think, fits in because Denny Lewis, who was head of the Union Construction Workers, I think he passed away. And they just combined it all into District 50. long about that time. So they entered into it too. I think this caused us losing it. So I went from there. I was in Newberry after that, that's right, because I remember I was working in Newberry. See, I went to Newberry in the organizer drive, and then I later came back and served as a business agent a while. Right, for a little while in there. But, yeah, we were on strike there because in Columbia. It's things like that. You're working over here a while, and you go over there a while in the same year.
Right.
Because we had a strike in Columbia with Bud Burma then later in the 50s. And I was there. But after the Livingston campaign, I went to Miami. Pretty sure. I went to Miami, and we got 3 shops. And Murray Gerstein was put in charge of the Miami area. So I left there and went back to, that's when I went back to Newberry, and for some reason or another I had to go back and serve as business agent for a while. And I helped organize on a campus shirt plant in Spartanburg with Ida Mae McAfee. And we didn't have any success there. We had some board cases and got some people reinstated with back pay, but we never were able to get a majority. There I went. Then I think I went back to Huntington to start that campaign. No, we went back to Livingston to see some rumblings of people wanted a union. We went back up to Livingston, and there wasn't enough interest. So then we went into a campaign and a strike at Mount Pleasant, Tennessee, and got a contract at that plant there. From there, I was working on Livingston and helped out when they had the strike in Mount Pleasant. I had to go in there and help with that situation. And where to go from there? Let's see. When I come back, I think that's when I came to Bremen to start a campaign on the cereal manufacturing company. I was in there about 2 years and went through about 3 elections. Had to have runovers due to them violating the law. That's when the board made decisions you couldn't use a race issue. That's where the ruling came. It's race issue could not be injected in an organized campaign. Unfair labor practice, use a race issue. And we had 2 elections set aside.
The NLRB made that decision?
Yeah, based on our charges. We that's what they used, the race issue.
How did they do that?
Well, they put out leaflets showing black and white people together, saying, do you want this and this, and really, about that time, it's when the 1954 decision, the Supreme Court decision, integration. And they made it so strong, we filed charges and used that as one of the reasons. And the board ruled in our favor. We had another election, lost it. So used the same things again, violated the same laws. So the second time we got it set aside, we decided we wasn't used to doing it again. They didn't mind violating the law. They just used to do the same thing again. And during the time I was there, then the Deckard situation got hot, and I went up there. We had to strike that plant. then I came back and we there were